Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Patty Giarrusso, and this is Let's Talk Pets on Society Bites Radio. Today's guest, we welcome back Rick Yocum. He's the executive director from the Humane Society of Manatee County here in Florida. And today, Rick and I are going to talk about why there's so many dogs in our shelters. This is Adopt a Shelter Dog Month here in October. So we want to talk about that, and we want to talk about why adopting a shelter dog is such a great idea. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thank you very much, Patty. Very happy to be back.
Yeah, it's good to talk with you again. So October is Adopt a Shelter Dog Month, and I just thought it would be a good time to talk about, why you think there are so many dogs in the shelters these days, because our local shelters are overflowing, as I'm sure they are across the country, and what people could do to, help out with that by adopting a shelter dog.
Absolutely. There's actually a whole lot of different things that impact our shelter system here, particularly in Southwest Florida, but it's certainly not a problem that only exists here. One of the good things that's happened is that the spay-neuter programs in Sarasota and Manatee County are impacting and lowering the intake in our county animal shelters. So that's been a long process that included education, funding. So that is working, but we do still have an issue. Our human population continues to grow at a quicker rate than the state of Florida, and so does our animal population. Right now in Manatee County, there are over 200,000 owned animals, and in this part of the country, people seem to move more frequently, and sometimes those moves include leaving their animals behind. And it's a sad fact, and those animals end up in the shelter system. Something that you and I talk about every time we get together also is the whole microchip issue, and how, education is the key to be able to reunite. Many animals that get separated from their owners don't get reunited because people either haven't taken the time to have their animal microchipped, they haven't updated their information with the microchip company, and therefore they don't get reunited. And that's particularly sad because it's avoidable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say, based on the work that I do and the dogs that are scanned that are found, it's probably well over 80% of the microchips are not registered or have outdated information.
Yeah, and you know that you and I and we, along with a couple of other animal welfare organizations in this area, are going to try to work together to put together some educational programs and some information out to the public to tell people, remind people, please, if your animal's microchipped, keep their information current. It's not difficult. It only takes a short period of time to do, and it's so important that people do that to protect their animals so they can be reunited.
Yeah, it is. And, the saddest thing I think is when a pet does get brought into the shelter and it is microchipped. And a lot of times, with hours of work, you can track down the owner. There's just a lot of research involved. But sometimes it's a complete dead end. There was one just yesterday that was an absolute dead end. There was zero information. And sadly, this was a deceased pet. It was hit by a car. It was chipped, but there was nothing on that chip at all, nothing.
Yeah, then the other issue that, again, you and I have talked about most recently is, veterinary clinics, shelters, animal rescue organizations need to make sure that their people are properly trained in using a scanner and finding that chip. And equally important is to take the time to make sure that they're getting the information correct. A zero is not an O, and O is not a zero. And if you hit a dead end the first time, reverse them and keep trying. And, people need to reach out to you when they hit a dead end, because you're like the pet detective that can usually find an answer. And it's grueling. It takes hours, as you and your volunteers know. But, just the simple fact is that even some veterinary clinics, their staff is not properly trained in scanning for microchips, and that's sad. We have a responsibility to the public to make sure that all of our staff who's going to be microchip scanning an animal have received training so they do it properly and give that animal a chance to get back with his human.
Right, right. And to share that information, like you said, sometimes some of the vets and some of the other shelters will not share that information, with me to help to let them, get some help. And I have the time, and I know they don't. Well, I really don't have the time, but I make it a priority.
You make time. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And and I know the shelters are just so busy, as the vets' offices are. So I'm more than happy to help them. And there is an organization across the United States that does it as well, and I'm part of that group, the Microchip Hunters. And it's available. This tool of people willing to search out dead-end chips is available to shelters, to vets' offices, to the public. We're here to help.
Yeah, my message to my staff pertaining to microchips and you is to absolutely give that information over immediately if there is an issue, if the owner can't be located, if there's a problem with the number, to absolutely give you that information. Veterinary clinics, oftentimes, obviously with medical information, we have a responsibility not to pass on medical information on animals to someone who's, not supposed. But when it comes to microchips, again, my message to my staff, and I wish it would be the message to every veterinary clinic, every animal welfare organization out there is, if you've got an issue with a microchip, give that information up and get the help that's available. It's right there at the doorstep. Take advantage of it.
Right, right. Well, we're going to work on that, Rick. We're going to work on it.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Yeah, yeah.
Education is huge. It's a huge key. I know you have limited resources. I know you have, your time, the amount of time you spend in doing this, you and your volunteers in particular. But again, I know that whenever we have reached out to you, you have immediately come to our aid and did everything you can to help us reunite an animal with their family. So, the help is there. Take advantage of it and share the information. It's huge.
Yeah, it is. It's important. I know right now in one of the shelters, there's 3 dogs sitting there with dead-end chips, and I can't get my hands on that information to help them. So it's kind of frustrating. But
the reason, and again, you and I, when we talk about this, and the simple fact is that shelters are overcrowded. And shelters, again, have a responsibility to both the public and the animals in their shelters to try every means to get those animals back into their homes. And that means sharing that information. It means properly scanning for the microchips. Make an effort to get that information. And again, if you can't, as an organization, reach out for help, because there are people that will help you. And that is our responsibility. So when I hear a shelter complain that they're overcrowded, but then I understand that they have 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 dogs or cats that have chips that they haven't been able to track, that falls under the category where I go, are you for real? Honestly, it's frustrating for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's really frustrating because, unless the chip is completely dead end, we're really good at tracking the people down, And so I always want to be able to help to do that, because there are too many dogs in the shelters. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about getting people in there to adopt a shelter dog.
Yeah, it's, doing off-site adoptions is a very, very successful tool to use. There are a lot of animal lovers that have a difficult time going to an animal shelter. A lot of people look at it as depressing. It upsets them. It's emotional, and it is. But the fact is that some organizations have limited hours. Luckily, around here, some of the organizations have expanded their hours to even include Sunday hours. Those are the innovative things you've got to do to try to help move those animals out of shelters and into homes. The number that I'm the proudest of at the Humane Society of Manatee County Second Chance Adoption Center is the average length of stay for an adult dog in our facility is only 34 days before it's put into a new home. Now, we do have some longer-term dogs. Yeah, we do have some longer-term dogs that are, larger, usually pit mix, that are harder to adopt. But it does take a little bit of extra effort and a little behavioral work with some of the dogs. But our average is under 35 days. That's what shelters should strive for, not just adoption numbers, but the length of stay and a reduced length of stay in a shelter. Some dogs have a lifespan. A large dog might have a lifespan of 10 to 12 years. If they spend 2 of those years in a shelter, add it up. And that's a good portion of their life, and that's not fair to the animals. So that needs to be continued to be worked on for sure. And dogs, we get 1 or 2 strays every day that come into our facility, and that's the responsibility part of owning an animal is to make sure that you take care of that animal so it doesn't end up on the street as a stray. Again, if that animal is not microchipped, there's no chance or very little chance you're ever going to get reunited with your dog. And that's heartbreaking for most people.
Yeah, it is. It really is. We just had a great story this week, and next week on next Tuesday, it's a cat, will be heading home. It was found in Sarasota, and it was lost from Ohio. And it's been gone 5 years, and it was found in Sarasota. Amazing. I know, and it had a chip, and the chip was up to date, and the cat's going to be going home, and that is amazing. Who knows how? I wish that it could talk and let us know how it ended up here. I know.
I wish cats and dogs could do Google reviews for sure.
All right. Yeah, but this, in the woman, it was funny because she had given up hope. She thought the cat was deceased, and she thought I was scamming them when I called to tell them. They really didn't believe it at first, and I can understand that, because why would their cat be gone that long and found in 1,100 miles away? So it was great.
I mean, we just had a very young pit mix dog that was struck by a car right in front of our shelter on 14th Street West a little over a week ago. One of our staff members heard the accident, ran outside, scooped that dog up, physically ran it over to our clinic, to our veterinarian, who ended up saving that dog's life. The owners of the dog was not microchipped, and it was in our facility past the stray hold, so we spayed and neutered the dog. We microchipped the dog, we gave the dog its vaccines, and we put it in our adoptable kennel ward. Well, it just so happened that the people who own that dog saw this online, came in today, and adopted their dog back. Now, that all could have been avoided. And boy, they know now, because I sat and talked with them for 15 minutes about microchip. And if you move, update your information. If you change your phone number, update your information, so you never have to go through this 9-day hell you just went through. They had a couple of kids that missed this dog, and there's no greater feeling in the world than reuniting an animal with their owner. I mean, it's the upside of what we do and what you do. It makes all the grueling back work that you do worth it all.
Yeah. We had a one today. One of my new volunteers, she was out she saw a dog loose yesterday, and she went out with the help of another volunteer